So tell us about, well, talk about reincarnation. There's just so much to say about that.
There is.
Take it away.
There is. And it's fascinating. I have been doing it for 66 years, so I'm pretty much one of the world, for sure, experts on reincarnation. And of course, the belief in reincarnation is thousands of years old, that the soul comes again and again in a body. It's a very comforting idea, and there is truth to it. When I was young, I would help somebody. I would never tell them their lifetimes. I would allow them to find it inside their own genetic makeup. The soul speaks to the body. The mind of the cell holds incarnational memories, and also the memories of your father's father's father, your mother's mother's mother, which is psychogenetics. So we have this whole realm of information that comes before our physical body.
Are people always able to access the information?
Yes, some people automatically. Children do it all the time. I always say to parents, when you're little, especially around 4 to 5, 3 to 5, I'd say, children start playing by themselves, and they'll go, okay, I'm the mother and you're the this. Mm-hmm. And if you would listen to them, you would realize that very often they are recanting their own incarnations. And so I would always say, listen to them, and then say, oh, was I there? Yes, you were my child. Mm. Oh, and how did we get along? And who died first? And you can help them to clear lifetimes that have caused them to create contracts and vows with you that bring them in as your children, because indeed they probably were your parent in other lifetimes, or your lover, or your teacher, your enemy, or whatever it is. So you can clear a lot with children just by listening to them. So some people automatically, we have that deja vu. You go to a place, or you hear a language and you say, I know that language, or I know this place. That deja vu thing. It's not just this flicker in the brain that some people like to say it is. No, it's actually a memory system that we have. The purpose, though, of exploring our incarnations is not to say, well, I was a king or a queen, or I was a great healer, but to see what the soul is doing as it evolves, how it's showing you that you know all of these things, you have these gifts. And you have been the fool, the killer, the great being, the healer, and the victim, you've been all these things. And the purpose of looking at an incarnation is to see what's happening now. Because some people say, well, why bother with past lives? Right. They're not past. They're going on now. You're picking the same people, the same themes that you had in other lifetimes. Again, I would say it doesn't matter if you believe in reincarnation. You could think these are stories from your forefathers. It doesn't matter psychogenetics, how you got it, but you're stuck with it. You are repeating that pattern. We want to go free. So in our work, the idea of seeing an incarnation is to look at the theme of the evolution of the soul. Why did the soul choose for you to be the victim, the killer, the great being? What did you learn from that? How can you learn it now? Because when you see an incarnation, the energy comes back to you. But there lies the crux. You need to clear karmically, you need to clear energetically, so that you dissolve the crystallization of that lifetime, so that the power or the love or the knowing comes back as pure energy into your life now. And that's how doing incarnational work alters the path you have in this lifetime. So it's not past, it's just deep.
Simultaneously, maybe.
Yes.
So we have to find somebody to do the past life reincarnation work with in order to actually do the healing.
Sometimes they come up spontaneously. If you ever have a lifetime come up spontaneously, even a fraction of it, you want to release it. And the way that I would say to release it is very simple. Ask your body where you hold that memory.
Yes.
And what frequency of light, because it's light that brings us into body, it needs to release it, even if it's a good memory.
Yes.
Because, for example, you might have been a very high priest in some religion, but you had no compassion. Or you sent your people out to kill the other guys, And so you come around now and you pick up that thread. So you had one element, but you didn't have the hologram of the potential of that knowing. And so that is why it's very important. The second part that's really important is that, for example, people teach techniques now, well, you can do this or this, you can do self-hypnosis or whatever and come to a lifetime. Mm-hmm. But you will never see the possessive energies that are part of that.
Those are hard to see. Teach me more.
Yeah, they're not only hard to see, we can't imagine them. And so we'll see only what is safe for us. Mm-hmm. We rarely will see the lifetime that we, did something that in today's world would be unacceptable or would be considered the Dark Lord. Or we would see it only from the justification. Mm-hmm. And so the possessive energies that cause that to be coursing through your blood and your body now, that cause you to create enemies or to have the experiences you have that come from that source, that lifetime, or many lifetimes in that thing, you won't see those. And in fact, when you open the sleeve into that vignette, that incarnation of the soul, you will activate those energies. And so you're just likely to have that possessive energy become louder in this lifetime. You will magnetize to you things that you wouldn't magnetize to you before. So I recommend it. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've learned that from working on myself.
but if we have a feeling that's familiar, like
yes.
a deja vu,
mm-hmm.
and where it's somewhere, and you suggested we feel where it is in our body.
Yes.
And then what's the next step?
Imagine, ask your body what color, what frequency of light it needs to release the content, to release it, so that the energy can come back to you in pure form and support you now. Even if you did something unspeakable in another lifetime, and believe me, we all have, over and over and over again, but you had the power to do it. Mm-hmm. The victim and the victimizer are one. They choose each other.
Yes.
It's very hard for us to understand
right.
that because we can't see the hologram, but it is
right.
true.
Yeah.
So you don't want to activate that energy now. You want to be able to release it. That's why it's really important to have a good person, if you want to do it, who knows, who's been trained about possessive energies. It's not to show you the boogeyman. It's just to say all of these things are true. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of the boogeyman, the bad guy, the killer, because that's all inside us. And so it allows me not to be so judgmental. Mm-hmm. But, you might think, ooh, this is terrible and frightening. And ultimately, none of us are really terrible or frightening. We're just humans.
And if we have a resonance of a past life that's good, where we are strong or a warrior for good,
if there is
could we strengthen that within? Could we strengthen those genes or neural bonds within us?
What we want to do is to strengthen this sense of self related to it. All incarnational work, all therapy of whatever kind it is, all spiritual energies, it's all about our sense of self. How do we really underneath feel? Are we blocking ourselves? What I see today is most people play small. They don't dare show that they have
we don't believe
talents.
in ourselves.
We think that our intuitive energy is just a coincidence,
right.
Because we've been raised in societies that say, prove it.
Yes.
Prove it or it has no value. Instead of, well, it has value because it brings purpose or it brings recognition or understanding into our lives. And so, again, if you have a deja vu of something that's wonderful, maybe it's just you go to a place and you feel happy there. Mm-hmm. Then you just allow that to move into you. We need to give ourselves experiences, not just talking heads, mm-hmm. not just understanding or thinking about it or analyzing it, but allowing the body to experience it as if it were now. Mm-hmm. In the same way, in this lifetime, we know now that if you have a memory from your childhood, it will be, the memory itself influences today, but today influences the past. It influences that memory. So you will remember certain parts of that memory in a certain way. Somebody else will remember it completely different.
And then our current experience will change our memory then?
That's right.
And change what
actually happened. It changes how we perceive it, and therefore our sense of truth about that, which reflexes back to our sense of self.
Is there something about 7 lives past and 7 lives future?
The Native American has a wonderful expression of that. Not necessarily about reincarnation, but about the future, let's say. They would say, 7 generations into the future are you responsible. They're talking about the legacy, the ripple out of your experiences, how they influence the choices and the way that your children's children live. And it's a beautiful concept when you think of it again. For me, it's not, oh my goodness, the responsibility of that.
I know.
But again, for me, responsibility is a place where you pull up and you say, I can do this.
Yeah.
You're not responsible for the outcome. You're responsible for saying, I can participate. I have something to give.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
it's a motivator to change yourself,
because
whatever aspect of you is going to be impacted for 7 generations.
7 generations into the future. And it doesn't matter, by the way, if you ever have children. Because
that's an interesting one.
Because psychogenetically, you influence people around you.
What does psychogenetics mean?
Psychogenetics means that genetics means a kind of inheritance. We think of that as being physical, but we have emotional and spiritual DNA. So psychogenetics refers to those that psychically you pick up or you bring in the legacy that has been left to you or passed to you by others who influence you. And that could be a church, a teacher, a blood relative. Right. Notice how miraculous this is that children that are adopted very often begin to look like their parents. That's psychogenetics.
Yeah. And another example of that might be where I changed my happiness level, going from depressed to super happy before I had my baby.
Yes.
Hence, she came into the world inheriting the happiness.
That's right. And of course, she may have passed that to you someplace. There's a dance. She chose you.
Yes.
She may have been your mother at another time.
That makes sense.
So there's this thing that her presence and knowing that she's coming, or her knowing you, brought in both of you that freedom to be happy.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
How many characters are we actually dancing with? Because when I keep looking at my past lives, it's like, one person is my husband, my father, my daughter, and my mom. So 4, and the 4 keep dancing in different structures.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, how many soulmates do soulmates might be a different conversation,
yes,
but I would like to get to that one.
Yeah.
How many different characters
might you be dancing with? It can be people that you only saw or only related to for a moment in your childhood, and they come up in an important way in your life now. Mm-hmm. They only came up for a moment in this lifetime because you were finishing something off, or you were activating some point of reference of who you are through them, or they through you, because there is that contracts and vows between you. But very often, again, our blood relatives and our sexual partners are the ones that will come up the most, because in this lifetime, certainly, they're the ones who can teach us the most. They can pass through our defense mechanisms, they can pass through our facades, our masks, and get right down to what we call the piercing of the heart. So they come up a lot, because we know them. That's how we've come together. Now, of course, spiritually, my higher self would say there's not a single person on this planet that you don't have some reference to. That's a lot. But we have a very small genetic pool here. There's 7-point-something billion people on the planet, and no one is further away from you than your 44th cousin. Genetically, that is the tiniest pool ever. It's nothing. So
that's
we are
amazing,
all
actually.
connected.
Yeah.
In ways that we forget. So sometimes, again, talking about the victim and the victimizer, someone will come in and play your bad guy. And you go, oh, this person is terrible, terrible, terrible. But if you were terrible to them or someone else in another lifetime, and so on a soul level you say, well, I need to see what that's like from this side, so I'll learn. Who's going to show it to you? Your friends aren't going to show it to you. And they're going to say, but that's against cosmic law. I'm not going to create that karma for me. Only those who really love you will be the bad guy for you. It's a very interesting concept, but it is true.